We tend to, like things, prefer things, gravitate towards things that we're more familiar with, sort of just because we're more familiar with them, not necessarily because they're, technically better.
Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hausman, and joining me today is a brand new rock star. He's joining me from the future over in New Zealand. He's an award-winning advertiser, an entrepreneur, co-founder of several global brands, including AF Drinks. He is founder of Previously Unavailable and an author, including his most recent, which is called Future Demand. James Hurman, thanks for joining me, man.
Thanks for having me, Kirby.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be fun. We're going to dive into some stuff. So, we talk to entrepreneurs and marketers on how to better market, but sometimes it seems like it's just hard to measure, right? And I feel like you're sort of an expert in this space. So can you talk about how we can treat marketing more as a science with evidence-based strategies?
Sure, yeah. How to approach that in the most succinct way. So I'll talk first about the subject of my most recent book, because that kind of gives some framing that's really useful when it comes to measurement. And so basically the book's called Future Demand, and it's based on this very simple concept that in any category, in any market, there's two types of demand. There's what I call current demand, which is people who are in the market at the moment. They're ready to buy from the category. They're in the process of making a decision. And then there's what I call future demand, which is the much larger group of people who aren't in the category today, but will come into it at some point in future. So to illustrate this and to sort of make it a bit clearer, what I do when I speak to audiences is I'll always do this experiment where I say, put up your hand if you are in the market for a new mobile phone, or mobile phone, as you say there in the United States, and you're looking to buy a new handset, a new cell phone, and you're doing that right now, or you're going to do that in the next couple of weeks. And a couple of hands always go up. And then I say, okay, now put up your hand if you think you'll buy a new mobile phone in the next 2 years. And everyone's hand goes up. And I do that exercise to illustrate this point that, in any category, there's this small group of people who are in the market right now, and this much larger group of people who aren't in the market right now, but will come into the market at some point in the future. And as marketers, we've got a job to do with both of those audiences. So the job to do with that small group of current demand is really simple. Our job is to convert them. It's to kind of convince them to buy us and not our competitors, and to do that as kind of efficiently as possible. But the job that we've got to do with that much larger group of people who come into the market later is a really different one. So our job isn't to convert them and to get them to buy something that they weren't intending to buy, because that's just, that very rarely happens. Our job is to kind of build the familiarity of our brand so that when those people come into the market, they gravitate towards us. Because we humans, we all have a familiarity bias. We tend to, like things, prefer things, gravitate towards things that we're more familiar with, sort of just because we're more familiar with them, not necessarily because they're, technically better. And so if we think about marketing in those two terms, we've got those two jobs: convert the current demand in our category and build future demand by making people and future customers sort of familiar with us and hopefully positive towards us. Then how we measure those two things is really different. So how we measure our conversion of current demand is really easy. We've got those tools at our disposal usually, and they're like our performance metrics. So, how efficiently are we converting sales? What's our cost of acquisition? What's the return we're seeing sort of immediately from a revenue or profit perspective on our ad spend? So that's all, we're pretty familiar with all that stuff, and we're pretty good at it. And those tools are readily available to us, but they don't give us any indication whatsoever about how we're creating future demand, right? Because those customers who'll come into the category later, they don't show up in this week's kind of numbers, right? They're not in the category. So we need a different set of measurement tools to adequately sort of figure out whether we're building future demand. And the most basic of those is using brand tracking. So, using a brand tracking study which helps us understand our brand awareness and our consideration and sort of what people think about us, those sorts of things, which has, until now been pretty expensive. And so if you're a young, small company, it's pretty hard to shell out sort of the 100 grand or so you need to a big research organization to get a quarterly dip on these things. But with one of our companies called Tracksuit, we actually made brand tracking about 1/10 of the cost and much more always on. So you have a dashboard that goes alongside your performance dashboards and tells you on a daily basis how you're growing your brand awareness and brand consideration. So those are the two sort of key measurement tools that you really need to have. Your sort of performance dashboard, which everyone, I'm guessing, who's listening already has, but also your brand dashboard, which tells you how you're growing your brand familiarity among that much bigger group of people who will come into the market later.
Yeah, and I think that leads really nicely into my next question, because it's like, I think Seth Godin talks a lot about the difference between brand marketing and direct marketing, which I think is just a little bit different way of saying it. But and so I think sometimes organizations lean into that direct, that people who are in current market, as you were talking about. So can you talk about why organizations should still invest in advertising that builds that brand for future buyers?
Yeah, well, if you don't, then you're really just always, you've got an upper limit on what you're able to convert, which is the people that are in the market at whatever point in time, which is a small group of people, and B, a group of people which is, contested by lots of others. And if they've done a better job, right, of building the familiarity of their brand with those people as they come into market, they're going to gravitate towards the brands that they're familiar with. So if we haven't done that, we're actually leaving a whole bunch of money on the table, right? We're leaving a whole group of consumers that, we're just leaving them to our competitors, really. And we've kind of proven this out. Recently, we combined our Tracksuit data with TikTok's data to look at the conversion rates on TikTok and how they are kind of mediated by brand awareness. So what the marketing science team at TikTok found when they combined our data set of brand awareness data with theirs is that conversion rates were about 3 times higher for the brands that had high awareness in market. So a brand with 60% awareness has about a 3 times conversion rate as a brand with 20% awareness. So what this tells us is that if you want to improve your performance metrics, actually brand building is a really critical way to do that, right? If you have done a good job of building up your brand awareness, you will enjoy much better performance metrics. So it's really kind of, that's the bigger game that we're playing. It's not, you can't just performance market your way to becoming a market leader or a very big business. You can definitely performance market your way from zero to becoming a pretty good business. But when it comes to, really growing into a truly big sustainable business, you need to be building your brand awareness so that you can kind of scale up in a sustainable way.
That's great. Great advice. Great advice. I'm literally thinking through a conversation that my wife and I had. We were looking at different vacation locations, and she put it out on social media and said, which of these locations do you like better? And, you had people who said one and people who said the other. And I said to her afterwards, I'm like, how many of these people have been to both? And the answer was very few, right? Like, it's just like they've gone to that location, so they like it better. And so it speaks to that, just it's familiar. And so I think that's a really good insight on your part. So, I mean, obviously we are both fans of marketing and advertising, but I've seen you talk about the idea that creativity can be the X factor when it comes to creating marketing that actually works. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. So, yeah, I've done a lot of research, and others have done a lot of research into creativity and effectiveness. So, I'll probably just touch on what I mean by creativity to start with. So, I use a definition that creative award judges at the big shows like Cannes Lions, or there in America, the One Show and the Clios and those sorts of things. The definition that awards judges use, and that's looking for advertising that's kind of really original or fresh. It's something that it doesn't feel like you've seen before. It doesn't follow a kind of common, format, template sort of way of doing things. Secondly, ideas that are really engaging as opposed to just information communicated at people, but ideas that draw people towards them because they're kind of engaging and entertaining and they make us think and feel certain things. And then the third thing is a high degree of executional craft quality. So, if it's a visual ad, great photography or cinematography or great illustration and art direction, those sorts of things make a difference. So that's what I mean by creative. And then what I mean when I say effective is work that's moved the commercial metrics of a business, so sales, market share, profitability, those sorts of things over the short term or over the long term. So when we look at the campaigns that have won creative awards or that have those creative award-winning qualities and compare those to advertising campaigns that don't have those qualities or haven't won those awards, the creatively awarded work is, always comes out on top. So it's much more efficient and effective, especially over the long term. So what we see in the data is particularly when you're looking at driving sustained longer term commercial effects, sustaining market share growth and sales growth and profitability over the long term, creatively awarded or very creative work is far better at doing that. Now, the reason for this is really simple. If we're in the market, going back to the current demand, future demand thing, if we're in the market at any point in time, we're really likely to look at functional information from a brand because that information is of great utility to us. We're in the category, we're wanting to make a decision, we're wanting to be armed with the right information. But if you're not in the category to buy something, you really don't pay much attention to advertising for stuff in that category because you got plenty of other stuff going on in your life, right? You're not going to sit down and, if you're one of those people that's not in the market for a new phone, you're not going to sit down and read all of the information comparing the, Samsung Galaxy and the iPhone and all the rational stuff. You're just not going to do, no one's going to do that unless they're kind of weirdly interested in mobile phones. So if you're not in a category, you need, the advertising needs to be creative enough to earn your attention. So let me give you an example. You'll remember the Volvo trucks ad was Jean-Claude Van Damme doing the splits over the two reversing Volvo trucks with Enya playing in the background, right? Now, are you in the market for a commercial truck?
I actually am not, no.
Will you ever be in the market for a commercial truck?
I kind of hope not.
So why watch that ad? Why did you watch that ad, right? There's no rational reason for you to watch that ad, right? You're never going to buy a truck like that. So there's no reason. You watch the ad because the creativity of the ad earned your attention, right? It was worth watching, even though you're not in the category. And so the genius of that ad is it spoke to all of the commercial truck purchasers who would come into the market over, the next 10 years, really, from when that campaign ran until now. All of those people saw that ad because it earned their attention, even though they weren't in the category at the moment. And so that's why you can see Volvo's market share in trucks all around the world has gone up pretty steadily since that ad ran. So that's the real power of creativity. If we want to talk to that big group who aren't yet in the market and we want to be remembered by them and we need to earn their attention because they're not in the category, creativity is the way that we do that.
That's a really great example because immediately I'm just like, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about because it was such a well done ad. All right, cool, James. Final question for you. Can you talk about like one piece of advice you find yourself giving brands all the time that you work?
Yeah, man, there's so many pieces of advice, but I'll actually touch on two because I think two are kind of really important. One is it's very normal and understandable, especially for brands or companies that maybe aren't as sort of, they don't have much marketing experience. Is what they do is they try and make their brand look like everyone else's in the category because they feel like, well, this must be the way that this category advertises or packages, right? Or names or sort of acts in any way. We have this fallacious belief that the existing players in the category have kind of cracked the code on how you communicate with consumers in this category. So we should be like them. It would be risky to kind of try and do our own thing and sort of when they've already showed us, how you brand and how you advertise. In actual fact, it's completely the other way around. The brands that stand out are the brands that are more distinctive, right? Distinctiveness and differentiation are the most important things to sort of worry about when you're designing a brand in the first place. So if you think of all the great brands in the world, like if you think of McDonald's or Coca-Cola or Nike or Apple or whatever, all of those brands, when they came into the category, they look nothing like the other competitors, nothing like them at all. And it's that distinctiveness that makes us difficult to substitute, right? So if we look like all the other brands in our category, not only do we not stand out, no one notices us because we just blend into the background, but we also become highly kind of swap outable, if you know what I mean. So if someone,
Yeah.
someone kind of, there's another brand that looks and acts the same way that we do, and they're 5% cheaper, we'll just choose that one because it's easy to substitute that brand with the one that we, the other one. So that's the first thing, is kind of when you're building a brand and designing a brand in the first instance, like find a way of really designing distinctively based on, what you really kind of believe as a company, or your vibe, or, your particular product and the way you are, as opposed to trying to make yourself look like everyone else, because that's a quick path to failure. The second thing, which is probably a more advanced piece of advice for people that are, they're building their brand and they're out there advertising. I get this question all the time, like, we should be making ads that do both sort of upper funnel and lower funnel work, right? So we feel that it would be more efficient or somehow better if we could make one ad which builds our brand and creates future demand and also converts current demand and drives immediate sales. Now, that's all well and good, except for the fact that it's been proven that trying to do both of those jobs in one go is more often than not unsuccessful at doing either very well. So Google have studied this. They've got some data from YouTube. They studied brands that tried to do both with one ad. That most of them did neither job very well. Very few of them did, one or other of the jobs well. And also the data that we see in the effectiveness, the panels of effectiveness data we have, says the same thing. And so I think it's a really stupid question for marketers to be asking, can we make one ad that does everything? A, because it's highly unlikely you'll succeed. And B, because it's just so easy to make two executions, right? One that's more a kind of more creative, emotional storytelling, the kind of ad that really does build our brand in the minds of future customers. And another execution that can be in the same sort of campaign framework with the same tagline and look and feel, but is more informational and just kind of goes for the people that are in the market and gives them the rational facts and says click here and buy now. It's so easy to make two separate executions. There's no point trying to make one ad that does it all and be highly likely to fail when we can just do two that do each job independently that are highly likely to succeed. So I just sort of push back on everyone that's sort of chasing this weird holy grail of making one ad that does everything. It's no more efficient and it's way less effective.
Yeah, so multitasking in our normal life for productivity doesn't work, and marketing multitasking doesn't work either. That's what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, there's just no need to multitask. There's no need to, eat and also clean the car at the same time.
Love it, man. James, this is great. You gave us, this is like a masterclass on marketing and advertising today. So thank you so much. This has been fun. We'll have to do it again sometime. Okay.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kirby.
All right, cool. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.